Welcome into Stacking the Box for another episode here. And we want to welcome in a man who needs no introduction, a three-time Super Bowl champion, played with the Washington Redskins and the Denver Broncos over a 12-year career. And of course, you can find him all over the media landscape. Mark Schlereth. Mark, how you doing?
I am doing great, man. Thanks for having me. I truly appreciate it.
Absolutely. Now, we're getting into the season. Thursday night, first game, Bills-Rams out at SoFi. And then, of course, a full slate on Sunday. How do you get your tailgate going here as so many fans, hundreds of thousands around the country are getting ready to fire up the grill, to fire up the stove, whatever they've got as they want to sit down and have some food for the game?
Yeah, one of the things I love about football is it brings us together, and a great place to start is your television set. The LG OLED TV, the award-winning 65-inch OLED C2 series, best picture quality, realistic colors, sharp images, no blurring on fast motion scenes. Whether it's movies, gaming, or sports, man, it's done better on a LG OLED TV, LG.com for more information. Then the pizza, right? I mean, no party's complete without pizza. Papa John's got their football pizza, thin crust pizza, uncut in the shape of a real football with Papa John's signature pepperoni. It's available nationally through September 25th at $10.99. You can find out more at papajohns.com. Then you got to have great sides, whether you're grilling hot dogs or burgers. Bush's Baked Beans, the sure side of a great time or good time. Bush's Original, Bush's Grillin' Beans, Secret Family Recipe, Cured Bacon, the fine brown sugar, signature blend of spices. You can use it as a standalone meal. Bushbeans.com. And then Slick Deals. To me, this is really cool. Community of millions of people working together to save you money. 12 million users vet and vote for the best deals on the internet, the best products, the best price from the best vendors. You can find out more, get all your great deals on all your tailgate needs, from tables to coolers, you name it, slickdeals.net.
Awesome. Great stuff, Mark. I'm looking forward to it. I'll tell you right now, I'm actually starving currently. So now I'm even hungry. Although what else is new? Look, so I got to ask you, it seems as though everybody this year is picking the Bills to win the Super Bowl. They play Thursday night against a team that actually won the Super Bowl back in February. Are you picking Buffalo to win the Super Bowl?
Listen, I'm looking at, there's so many things that have to happen for you to win a Super Bowl, right? So many good things. And I think they're as talented as any football team in the National Football League. I think they're loaded. One of the issues for me is you got a new play caller. And one of the things about being an offensive coordinator, Ken Dorsey takes over. He's been a quarterback coach, so I get that. But calling plays, there's a difference between calling plays and calling an offense. And we'll see exactly how that pans out. The other thing is, toward the end of the season, man, you got to be playing your best football, and you got to be blessed with health. And I don't want to call it luck, but good fortune. How about that? So good fortune, health, playing your best football toward the end of the season. So if you're telling me Bills versus the rest of the field in the AFC with Patrick Mahomes and Russell Wilson and Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert and Lamar Jackson and all the other teams in the National Football League, I'll take the field. Although I think the Bills have a great shot. The NFC is kind of the old guard of quarterbacks, right? With Matthew Stafford, who starts Monday night. You got Tom Brady. You got Aaron Rodgers. The usual suspects there. Any one of those teams has a great shot at winning a world championship.
I'm curious. You played on 3 Super Bowl teams. You know what it takes to win a Super Bowl many times over. Which of those teams was the best team that you played on?
Wow. Great question. I think that still in many publications, you look at it, they still rate the 91 team that I played on in Washington as the best Super Bowl team in the history of the Super Bowl. And I think they're the only team currently in Super Bowl history to have a top 5 offense, a top 5 defense, and a top 5 special teams. So, that was a loaded football team that really just imposed their will against pretty much everybody in the National Football League. End of the season at 14-2, lost a couple games late. But I will tell you this, think about this. I had a Super Bowl 26 reunion for the 30th reunion of that Super Bowl team. And we had about 25 guys that played on that team on this Zoom call. And Joe Gibbs addressed our team. He was our head coach. And he was talking about the playoffs. It was right after the playoff game between Cincinnati and Tennessee, where Joe Burrow was sacked 9 times in the game and still found a way to win that game, which says a lot about Joe Burrow, because that, to me, is an impossibility to do that. And yet they found a way to do it. Well, think about this. In a 19-game schedule, right, throughout the playoffs, so that's 16 games and then 3 playoff games, that Washington team that I was part of gave up 9 total sacks on the entire season. And we faced the Buffalo Bills in the Super Bowl with Bruce Smith and all the guys they had that could rush the passer. So 9 total sacks in 19 games. Absolutely incredible what that team was able to accomplish.
Where do you fall on that 90s Bills team? Are they one of the greatest teams of all time, or do you not put them there because they never won a Super Bowl?
No, I think it's one of the most remarkable, like as time shines on that era of football, I think it's one of the most remarkable accomplishments I've ever seen, right? I mean, I was a guy that was fortunate to win back-to-back championships, one of only 7 teams, I think, in the history of the National Football League to be able to do that. So it's an incredible accomplishment when you think about it. But to go back 4 straight times, that to me is one of the most remarkable accomplishments in the history of the National Football League. So, they were always this kind of joke, this punchline, if you will. But I think as time has moved on, we realize what an incredible accomplishment that was and how good those teams were under Marv Levy.
Now, you kind of famously have had a lot of surgeries both throughout your career and I'm sure afterward. How many surgeries now are you up to from your playing days and maybe even post?
Well, I had 29 surgeries while I was playing. And I had my first surgery post playing, and it was actually a heart surgery this offseason. And so, you know what, it turns out that playing football and orthopedic surgeries are tied together. So I haven't really had that issue since I quit playing. I haven't beat myself up to a pulp like I did when I was playing. But knock on wood, things are pretty good, and I'm blessed to still be moving around. I haven't had to have any of my joints replaced as of yet. Eventually, I'll have to have my knee replaced, my left knee replaced. But right now, it seems to be holding up, and it doesn't bend really well, but it doesn't give me a ton of problems either.
The reason I ask is obviously nowadays more so than ever before, there's a focus on player safety. There's an idea that, hey, we've got to make sure we, take headshots out of the game. We can maybe even eliminate cut blocks here at some point. You're a guy who went through and played 12 years, had a lot of injuries, also played through a lot of injuries. Do you look at it now as a player who played predominantly in the 90s and say, you know what? I'm glad that there's more and more player safety and there should continue to be more player safety. Or are you one of those guys who look at it and says, I feel like at some point it takes away from some of the physicality of the game that I played when I was in the midst of it all. Where do you fall on that?
No, I think player safety is supreme. I mean, you're still hitting each other, right? There's still a lot of things that you just can't take out. There's always going to be injuries. I get all that stuff. So I'm not one, well, they are not doing it like we're doing it. And I get it. One thing about the National Football League is they're quick to change. They will change in a heartbeat, right? And every year you get a set of new rules, and that's just the way it goes. So that doesn't bother me. The game that I grew up watching, right? We all watched it when I was a kid. We loved it. We watched it. And now, that I'm older, the NFL doesn't pander to me. Like, they know they have me, right? They can change the game. They can do whatever they want. I might complain about it, but I'm not going anywhere. The game becomes more and more, it resembles more and more year in and year out the video games that the kids today grew up watching. Like, it's funny, when I travel around the National Football League and I'm talking to teams and I'm calling games for Fox, most of the kids don't know that I played. Like, their sense of the National Football League, they became fans playing Madden football more than watching it on television, which, is to me, it's kind of shocking. But I'm not saying that it's bad or that it's good. It's just the way it is. So I think the game continues to morph to look more and more like a video game every year. And if that's how you attract the next generation of young fans and get them hooked on the NFL, then that's just smart marketing by the National Football League.
A couple more questions here on Stacking the Box with Mark Schlereth. And Mark, you mentioned John Madden and his video games. I'm curious, working with Fox, doing all that you did, playing throughout, a long part of his broadcasting career. Did you know John Madden well? And if so, do you have any thoughts on really a guy who passed recently, who's one of the icons of the game.
Did I know him well? No. Have I met him? Yes. And I will just tell you, as a player, when John Madden showed up to your game, you knew it was a big game. And when John Madden showed up on your sideline to watch practice, man, everybody whispered, like, "Oh my God, John Madden's here." And like, he's that big. He was that iconic, even as a broadcaster, while he was broadcasting. And that's before all the Madden football and everything else. So,
right.
John was he was that guy, and he was revered for what he brought and the popularity that he created in the broadcast for the National Football League. The guy's iconic, and still to this day is the gold standard of NFL broadcasting. As a matter of fact, like, I look at myself as a broadcaster and say, "Hey man, how can I get better?" I went and downloaded a bunch of John Madden games and watched a bunch of stuff. It's part of my off-season preparation. And not to mimic or to sound like John Madden, but just to go, how did he do it? Like, right. What were the keys? And he had this everyman's ability to explain a very complex game and keep it so simple, right? And I always say this about football. The thing that intrigues me about football is the juxtaposition of complexity versus simplicity. It's a simple game that's played in a very complex manner. And he just had a way of explaining it to where anybody sitting on the couch could absorb it, could digest it, and go, "Okay, that makes sense to me." And I find it fascinating, his ability to do that.
It's awesome. Last two real quick. What is you played RFK Stadium, loud stadium, mile high, maybe the loudest stadium. What was the hardest stadium for you to play in as a player?
Probably Kansas City. And the way that stadium is structured, not only the Kansas City fans just rabid, right? But the walls of that stadium sit right on top of you. So when you sit on the bench, the wall from the bench is probably 5 or 6 yards away from where you sit. And then it's probably about 10, 12 feet over your head. And so those fans are sitting right on top of you. Just when you're trying to make adjustments, man, they're just dog cussing you. And that stadium is probably, just acoustically, the way it's set up, it's probably the loudest stadium I've ever played in. And I didn't play in the new Seahawks. What is it, Lumen Field now? Yep. I didn't play in the new Lumen Field. And when I was playing in Denver, the Seahawks they were not great. So a Kingdom could be loud at times, but usually you could shut them up, pretty early in that game. But Kansas City was to me the toughest place to play in the National Football League.
Last one I got for you. What is the best John Elway story you have? You played with him for years. John and his character. Anything that stands out that you can share? I
think that anytime, like, regardless of the situation, and this is one of the things I just loved about playing with John. That dude walks in the huddle, and you could be down by 14, and John would come into the huddle and be like, we got him right where we want him. This is like perfect. There was just that sense of confidence about him. And he never, it was one of those things you see quarterbacks today, like, yelling at their teammates and this, that, and the other. John never raised his voice unless, we got a play in late and had to hustle the line of scrimmage. But even when he got hit or he got sacked, John never said boo to anybody. He was just like, "Let's go. We'll make it up on the next play." And I always appreciated that about John. I mean, not that I ever gave up a sack. That would be, that never happened. But you know what I mean? If things weren't going well, John wasn't cussing us out, man. He was always great about encouragement, and you always felt like, regardless of the situation, you had a chance to win a game.
Awesome. Hey, Mark, thanks a lot for doing this. Good luck this year out on the road covering games for Fox, and I look forward to listening to your analysis down the way.
Sounds good, man. Take care of yourself.